Hey everybody, welcome back to Woodworking Wisdom. My name's Colwin, and today it's all about the nutcrackers. So if you've seen any of my demonstrations before, if you've seen me demonstrate or heard me talk about wood turning, you know how involved and into anything Christmas is all about, or for me is all about. Nutcrackers is where I started, or my enjoyment of the whole Erzgebirge region, or the all-mountain region of Germany, and their turners, their craftsmen. This is what started me off in my basically infatuation with that area. I've been to Siefen, I've been to Obenhau, I've been to the Nutcracker Museum in Siefen, even to the point where at the doorway had my photo taken with a 7-foot tall nutcracker. It's a wonderful place to go to if you get a chance. Siefen, S-E-I-F-F-E-N is the name of the place in Eastern Germany. But nutcrackers, this is what we're going to do. So I have explained about these before. I've sort of spoken about what they are. Basically a good luck charm. Now more traditionally, they are a Christmas heirloom gift, I suppose, or heirloom decoration. Made really, really popular after the Second World War, when the returning GIs going back to America took the German nutcrackers back from Germany. But you would have seen the Nutcracker Suite, or you would have heard of the Nutcracker Suite, and more recently movies on the TV and on the cinema, revolving around these Nutcracker figures. The idea of them is they're there to ward off, to scare away any unluckiness that the family might get, any bad feeling, that sort of thing. They're a good luck charm. That's the reason that you'll see them. They always have this sort of snaring sort of grimace on their face, so the teeth are always exposed, unless it's the Queen figure you're making, of course. And that is there, like I say, to keep everybody safe. They're linked very closely with smokers. Smokers are put up after nutcrackers. So nutcrackers on Advent, and then after Advent you put your smokers up, and they do the same thing. But nutcrackers portray figures of authority, so things like soldiers, things like kings and queens. Smokers, or German smokers, represent the working man, so wood turners and farmers, joiners, things like that. More recently I've done doctors and nurses because of what's been going on. But yes, that is that's the tradition around them. So this is what we're going to make. This is a very large version of what we're going to make. It's not the usual ones I make. In fact, I say this is a very large one. I have made more recently a much bigger one, and then you would have seen that in the intro to this video today. You would have seen one of the larger ones, but this is the most common size. So if I put that next to him, this is a 300 or 12-inch drummer boy. This will eventually be, and I just made this one last week just that we can dissect, we can take them apart, we can show you each section. What I want to do for you in the next 2 days, so we're here today and we're here tomorrow, is to go through each section. Tomorrow we're going to, hopefully today I'll get as much of the turning done as possible, and then tomorrow we'll look at the embellishments. So we'll look at some of the painting involved, and what paints would we use, for instance. We'll look at how we would get the hair on, maybe some of the refinements on the arms, that sort of stuff. So we'll look at all the pretty bits tomorrow, and we'll do the actual dusty, dirty work today, if that's okay. Ben, can we just have a look at some of those photos? We've got Ben on cameras, everybody. He's doing our photos and asking questions and all that sort of stuff. So Ben's here today, so we're in good hands. But here we are. This is just a selection of nutcrackers. These were actually from last year. I've sold everything I've made so far, so I've only got photos to show you. So these are a good selection. I used to do a lot of soldiers and carrying weapons. I've sort of steered away from that now. We've gone into more musical versions of the same thing. So drummer boys, we've got guards just standing to attention, that sort of stuff. And one of the best things that the actual charm of these comes when you put the faces on. Even though they're showing their teeth, you can see there that that's where all the character is. You can make, and what we're going to make today is just a solid soldier. You can make them with the Nutcracker mechanism. You can just make out the mechanism there. If you look at its beard, there's a line there where the teeth are. Now that mechanism moves. That's the Nutcracker bit. You open the mouth with the lever at the back, and then you crack the nuts between the teeth. That's the whole idea. If you're going to do that, you need to strengthen things up quite substantially. We will talk about that. And again, tomorrow, I'm going to bring in a router box to show you the router box is the means to actually get the slot in the body, and that's how you create the mechanism. I can also bring in some line drawings for those as well, because I know I'm going to get lots of people asking, how do you make a router box to make one of the nutcrackers? To be honest, I don't think they need the mechanism, because really, unless you're going to really strengthen that mechanism, it won't be able to crack nuts. Timber, unfortunately, has a weak spot, and that's down the grain. Wherever you position that the mechanism section, it will have a weak spot. So I just have them as ornaments. They stand on the mantle and do their job. They keep the receiver safe. Okay, and like smokers, and we'll be making a batch of smokers for you in a few weeks' time. Like the smokers, you can characterize them to the person that you're giving them to. So if you're giving them, for instance, to a policeman, you can make them to a policeman. Nurse, like I said, make it in the form of a nurse. There's whatever occupation there is out there, I'm sure you can characterize your figure to suit. So let's get started. Like everything else I've done so far, we start from the ground up. We build slowly. So we're going to start with the base. We're going to look at a little bit of split turning with the feet. Then on to the legs, the body. The body, like I say, we will look at how you get the slot in there later on. We're not going to worry about that at this stage. The arms, do you want straight arms? Do you want them standing to attention? Do you want them bent? Do you want them knocking the drum? It's entirely up to you. We'll look at how we do that. The face, dead easy. The peak and the hat, again, dead easy. Doesn't matter what type of hat you put on. They're all relatively easy. They have to be round. Well, sorry, that's wrong. Most of them are going to be round. In fact, all the ones we're going to put on our figures here are going to be round. But I'm just doing one at the moment for a lifeguard, so a palace guard, and he wants a ceremonial helmet on his, so a silver helmet with the plume running down the back, and I'm quite excited about doing that one. I've never done one of those before, but you can do whatever you want, basically. The timbers we're using, pale timbers, because I want to paint them either with a transparent stain or dye, or with an opaque aerosol spray. And again, we're going to look at which we can use. I'm using a mixture at the moment. If you want to not paint them, not put any color on them at all, use colorful timbers and make the timbers be the star. For instance, the tunic, I would have a nice dark timber and have paler arms and paler legs, or you can match the arms to suit the tunic, whichever. But that's quite important. In terms of parts to do these, so what you'll find, the links below this video will have the line drawings. So let me grab you the line drawings. I've put these down as a link for you to download as a PDF. We've got the actual line drawings here with measurements on, and there's 2 pages of those, just some little painting techniques, well, not painting techniques, but a pattern for you to follow when it comes to your painting. It will have the mechanism on if you wanted to do the mechanism as well, but all the parts there ready for you to make your own nutcracker below the video. I've also included a link to another wood turner as well, Tiny Turner. She has a fantastic website, and the reason I've included her link is because she holds as stock in her shop the fur to do the hair, and it can be quite difficult to come by. You search fake fur and you'll find it. You might have to try FUR or FURR depending on what the website search comes up with. But Tiny Turner's website, the link is below. She does hold it, and I think it's 150 mil long, so 6 inches long by 2 inches deep, which is perfect for these small nutcrackers. Okay, won't quite do the big ones, but I'm sure if you talk to her, she might be able to sort something out for you. All right, all that information is below, like I said. But let's start now. To start with, and I'm going to keep referring to this little fella here. If we look at him at the moment, what I've got here is a base to make. We've got feet. Now, I won't be able to complete the feet today because they will need drilling out, and I'll show you why. You can see there where they're flat here, where the legs go on to. So that's just done with a Forstner bit in a pillar drill. I haven't got my pillar drill with me. You know I like drilling on pillar drills rather than freehand. We're gonna compromise today and do a little bit of freehand drilling. But with the feet, we're gonna have to make then the legs. We're going to look at 2 forms of base, though. So that's the square one. I've got a square version here, but this is a turning demonstration, so I'm going to turn your base. But look, there's our 2 options. We can have a square one. So if you're into your woodworking and you've got a router, a square one will be fairly easy to make. You can put whatever profile you want on the outside edge, or you do yourself a round one. That's what we're going to start with. It's just a plinth, basically. So we'll start with a nice round base. I've got a piece of tulip wood here. Okay, the issue is, and I'm sure many of you will find this as a bit of an issue when it comes to making a big base like this, having the jaws to suit. So I don't want to use a screw chuck on this. I don't want to use a faceplate because that's going to impact on the actual base. I don't want screw holes anywhere. So I'm going to actually hold this between centers, and I'm going to do it on a push plate. So just a center in, push plate, then I'm going to create a little foot on the bottom, just 2 to 3 mil deep, and that means then I can use any set of jaws I have, one size to those jaws, to hold this piece. So I'm going to start with a C jaw and the SK114. We're going to pop that one in. Don't forget, use the chat facility, everybody. Just give us questions if you have any. If you're unsure about anything. Now, what we have, and someone was asking over the weekend, actually, they dropped us an email and asked, how do you make the sanding disc? So I'm just going to briefly explain. I know I've explained this several times, but the sanding disc is mounted on a piece of plywood. Okay, and that in turn is mounted with a faceplate ring. And I've just shaped the outside edge of that plywood just to an angle. And then on the front, we've added some Velcro, some hook and hook material, and I've used strips, okay, because you can't always buy the right size disc for the right size abrasives. So I've used a meter long length of 100 mil wide, just regular hook material. That's on the Axminster website. Look for hook and loop system or hook and loop abrasive discs. And then I've added my abrasive disc. This is an 8-inch version. But again, if you get the meter long, you can go for power tool abrasive discs. So either your 5 or your 6-inch disc. You really make it suit yourself. So we've got that as an option. And then we've got a push plate as well. Because I don't mind that getting marked, I can use either of those. Okay, so we're going to go with the sanding disc. I've never shown you this one before, so it's already got its own grippy sort of surface in the way of sanding abrasive. And all we're going to do is bring, with the help of a ring center, so a tailstock ring center. Let's use that one. 2 seconds. Let me grab my ring center. Ben's just ran off to grab me one of those. But in the absence of the ring center, let's go with this one here. So this is one of the Pro drives. This is even better, if I'm honest. So have a look at it. We pop camera 2 on there, Ben. So there we are, ring center. This is the Pro drive. So this has got spurs around it. Basically, what I don't want is a single pointed center. Okay, I need something that's going to support that well. So if I bring this one up, the disc up here now, I know it's going to be nice and secure. I'm going to lock the tailstock in and just push it against that. I'm not going to touch the outside face, but now I've got that really securely held in there whilst I just skim back with a bolt gouge in my case, and I can create that nice little foot. So I've already set up a pair of calipers and I've sized them to suit, or sized them to match the inner grip of my C jaw. All right, so in fact, let me, whilst that's there, just do a rough pencil mark. This is going to be just to give me a rough idea, and then what I'll do, if I cut to that and then size again, I'll bring the calipers up. Don't want to go too fast. I reckon about 1,000 revs should be fine. And we're just going to skim. But whatever I take off here is sacrificial, but won't be part of the finished piece, so I don't want to take too much away. There we are. That looks to be about 3 mil. Now, what I can do, because the inside surface of my C jaw is square, I just want to square that foot up. There we are. And that's done. If you're going to make lots of these, then you know what you're going to do. You're going to do that process first before you move on. So let me check with my calipers now. That'll be fine. Then it can come off. As simple as that. Take off the sanding disc. And we're ready to grip. So now what I can do, I can tackle this as the back, and we can do our recess. We can do the outside edge. And we've got a means to hold it. Much, much easier than messing around trying to find a big set of jaws to grip the outside of it, all those sorts of things, okay? Yes, we got some questions.
So not so much questions, Colwin, but there's lots of comments here on, you know, they're all checking in, saying hi. Some top tips. One person, so Ed's brought a faux fur coat from a thrift store.
Okay.
And is using that. Lots of people checking in. We've got Ruby said she saw your display at Wizardry and thought it was fantastic. And then a couple of people have had a go at this themselves, and there's 1 2-foot one out there and a 3-foot one as well.
Excellent. That's what we like to hear. Excellent. Yeah, so I met up with Ruby at Wizardry. I think Ruby was off to Austria after this to look at clock making, I believe, or carving as well. So she's going right into the heart of woodworking country. There we are. Just that recess. We're going to create a recess, 1/4-inch bowl gouge. Should be fine. Get my tailstock out the way a minute. And I'm just going to drag to center. Let's go again. 2 to 3 mil will be absolutely deep enough. Parting tool. There we are. That's plenty deep enough there. But all I need to do now is clean everything up. So push cut now. So we're bevel rubbing. There we are. Clean up this outside surface. That'll do. Now I'm going to scrape that. I'm going to scrape that because it'll act. It'll like the scraper because we're on side grain. I've got this lovely big 30 mil skew, which is acting as a lovely negative rate scraper. Keeps that nice and flat for me. Create our dovetail. Just using the scraper again, and whilst I hit the bottom, just make sure that's nice and flat. There we are. And then it would be a case of sanding. I'm not going to do too much sanding for you today because you don't want to sit there and watch me sand. But now we're going to just skim that outside edge, and I'm going to cut toward the headstock because this is a good clean finish. I don't want to rough it up. I don't want to create any burrs, that sort of thing. So handle down really, really low for this one. You can see here, look how low that handle is. And I'm going to use the bottom of the wing, just to create almost like a skew cut. And this is going to give us a really clean finish to that end grain. All the dimensions are on the line drawings, guys. You can download those as PDF. Print off your own copy. And start creating your Nutcracker army. There we are. That's good. So I'm happy with that. At that point, sand. So you start with your 100 grit, 150, 240, 320, 400. And then I put your sanding sealer on. And if you're not going to paint it, at that point, put whatever finish you want on your lacquer or your wax. But if you're going to paint it, then wait until the end. And of course, if you're going to stain or dye rather than paint, don't sanding seal. Sand to a good finish. Put your paint on, put your stain on, and then lacquer and denib. Okay, just to be clear on that one. Yes, Craig. Yes, Ben. Sorry.
Hodgepodge would like to know: do you name all of your nutcrackers?
No. I guess it's a little bit like a farmer and his flock of sheep. Never name them because you don't want to let them go if you do that. So no, I don't. I do photograph every single one, so I know what I've got, what I've done before. You do have favorites. My wife works in a sweet shop, an old time sweet shop with all the old fashioned glass jars and that sort of stuff. And I've done a blue one that's about 3 foot high that's sitting in the window of the sweet shop. Just fits really perfectly with that sort of thing. So yeah, then that's probably one of my favorites that she's got there at the moment. So that unfortunately won't be on our Christmas display at home. That will be in the sweet shop for the duration. So just taking off that little foot and skim the surface. And then again, we want to make sure this is flat. I've spoken about this before when we were doing, or I have spoken about it before. I don't think I've spoken about it with you guys actually. When I do the smoker demonstration, it's quite important. Like this, we've got to get these figures standing upright. If we don't get them standing upright, they appear to be drunk, which of course we mustn't have. So nice and flat, just checking with a straight edge from time to time. Lovely. That's good. So now we can do a shape. I'm not going to go ultra intricate with this shape. Just do a very simple curve. There we are. Let's just keep it really, really simple and just do a nice little curve there. That can be sanded. You can put some marks in there, some lines, that sort of thing. What I would say is don't go too crazy with the amount of timber, excuse me, you take away, because otherwise there is potential that your feet will start overhanging the edge. Quite important that. I'm just going to, with a pencil, just dot a center mark. It can be sanded off in a minute. Because all I want to do now, look, with that center mark there, is I'm going to line up for my holes. This is a little template that I've made. And again, I've got two of these. Okay, two of these. One for the top. So when I say top, that's going to be top of the body. So it's not used at the moment. But this one's for the bottom of the body and the base. So what we have to do is make sure that we align our legs. And the holes for the legs are both in the same places on the base and the bottom of the body. Otherwise, your legs are going to look a little bit angled. So we're going to pop that in the center. I've got a nail running all the way through there. Look, so all I'm going to do is line up that center point. And then I can, just with a pencil, you can use a bit of card if you wanted to. That gives me a good position. And that can be drilled out in a moment. Okay, so I'm going to drill that off the lathe with a pillar drill normally, but we'll do it by hand in this case. All right, so let's just do that now. The reason I say a pillar drill, when you're drilling by hand, if you don't drill your hand because pieces slip, what you'll find is that the drill can go through this timber so quickly that you're through the bottom of your piece without realizing. So you've got to be so careful. So if you can hold this in a pillar drill and do it controlled where you can set a depth, much, much better. Here, I'm not going to run to the pillar drill. I'm just going to do a very conservative depth of hole. So I'm not going too deep at all. I'm just making sure I absolutely don't go through. There we are. Let's have a bit of a messy hole, which we'll clean up in a minute. But there we are, 2 holes in place. We can start building something now. Okay, so let's go on to the feet. So I've mentioned this before. This is a piece of split turning. And if you don't know what split turning is, it's basically where you're turning 2 bits of timber at the same time, and the 2 bits of timber are joined with a piece, well, they're glued together, and in between that glue or the joint, it's a piece of card. In this case, it's nothing too confusing. It's just a piece of cereal packet. Okay, you don't need anything special. Just a bit of thin card is fine. Okay, so what we'll do with that, we've already got a center line there from the card. So you can see where we're going to be. And then gently with a bradawl. If you push too hard with a bradawl, what you'll probably do is end up splitting it prematurely. So I don't want to do that. And then again, same on the other side. And it is really, really important that we use a ring center on this bit. So Ben is just going to have a look for that ring center for me again, if he would. Now, the reason that we want a ring center is because again, if we start using a single pointed center, what can happen is that it'll act like a wedge. and you'll start wedging things open. So a ring center is really important. So what we're going to do is take this off, and we're going to go ring center, drive center and ring center, both matched pair. And so the drive center is going to be that one. Okay, you've all seen those before. All right. And then the ring center, ring center is going to go in the tailstock. All right, I'll pop that one there. Lovely job. Thank you very much. There we are. So there's the ring center. Look, exactly the same as our drive. And this is going to, the ring around the center point is going to protect that join and stop it from being paired open. There we are. It holds it together almost. And so if we now do our turning and split them, they're going to have two, you're going to have two identical halves. Well, that's the plan anyway. Let's go straight to a spindle gouge for this one. And basically you're turning a, what was the sweets called? Almost like a jelly baby shape. It's like a figure eight, but one with a fat bottom, if that makes sense. So we'll just shape that. Yes, Ben.
So a question from Cliff. He's asking what size those holes that you drilled were.
Oh, sorry, I'd never said anything, did I? 6 mil, because we're using 6 mil dowel. So we're going to use some fluted 6 mil dowel to glue it together. So every hole, I think, I'm trying to think of other hole sizes. Every hole that we're using on this figure, 6 mil. So it's one drill bit. You don't have to go out and buy loads of drills. Skew chisel. There we are. So nice finish. Then we can start creating that shape. Remember what I said? It's like a jelly baby. Don't forget you need some. You need to clear away the waste or the hole that the drive center will leave. So let's just create a little bit of a gap there. I'm going to do the toe. There we are. I'm going to do the heel. Heel you can have a much flatter back too. There we go. And then just in front of that, you've got a little hollow. There. So we'll take away a little bit more of that waste now. There we are. And I'll tell you what, we'll sand that before we take him off. So let's go. I'll go with the 150, 240, 400. I won't bother with the 100. I think it's a bit overkill, really. Timber that I'm using here is lime. Lime just turns really, really nicely. But you could use pale stuff. You could use sycamore. Use your maple, that sort of thing. I could say if you're painting anything pale, really. There we are. That'll do us. Yes, Ben.
So, Colin, you're just talking about suitable timbers. Tom would like to know, would pine be a good choice?
Yeah, you could do. You just be aware with pine that the winter and the summer growth, there is a massive difference in density. So when it comes to staining or painting, use that to your advantage. You will always see the grain through. So it will pull in, draw in a lot of the dye and the paint into the soft summer growth. So just bear that in mind. But like I say, you can use that to your advantage. You can get some great effects using pine. So yeah, no problem at all. In fact, there's nothing that you couldn't use, to be fair. You know, timber has so many different properties. You can pretty much use whatever you want to and have a slightly different result each time. So let's go. I'm just going to sand the bottom and top of that away, just with my sanding disc, because we've got some little waste areas that we don't want. So lathe speed to 0, dust extractor and lathe on. And we're just going to get rid of those little wastes on the top and bottom. Quick as that. There we are. Once you've done that, we're just going to go to little rotary sander head. So with a much finer grit, this is a 240. Right, you can see what I'm doing. All I'm doing is just cleaning up, so there's no signs that we ever held that between centres. Back to one side. Now, once we've done that, you want to grab yourself a little knife, craft knife, that sort of thing, and we can start looking at splitting these in two. I'm going to go very carefully with my flat carving file, and you just basically place this in to your, let's get that in shot, into the join and push. A little craft knife will be good. Watch your fingers. There he goes. Okay, so you've got a nice little, just a little pair of size 12s there. Okay, you see what I mean about the jelly baby? What I would do now is I've done this before where I've put the disc now onto the lathe and trying to sand that without sanding my fingers off. It's always quite difficult. So you've literally got a nice little platform just to run that back and forward, just to start cleaning off the old cardboard, the old glue, all that sort of stuff from the bottom. All right, you'll see eventually that starts coming away. Go to the overhead just briefly there, Ben. All right, you can see how we're getting to timber there now. The next thing to do to these two will be to mark, get them right the way around, mark them either with a pencil or a bradawl. That then goes to the pillar drill, and we use a 15mm drill bit, a Forstner drill bit to create your flat. Let me grab the one that I've already done here just to show you exactly what I mean by that. I'll grab the feet off of this one. Okay, so what we have is that nice little flat there created. Look, that can be drilled through, so you can see the sort of section that we've got, and that's our way to butt joint the leg onto. All right, so that would be the next stage. By tomorrow I'll have that done for you so we can move on. For the minute, we're just going to put the legs straight into the base when we make them. Okay, so onwards and upwards onto the legs. Yes, Ben, let's have a question whilst I'm doing that.
So Alan would like to know, what's the height of the lathe?
The height of this lathe? Oh, I'll measure it. I'll measure it. I wouldn't know. Just a little bit cautious with heights of lathes. We've got a tape. You can grab me a tape, Ben, could you? So in terms of heights of lathe, the general rule for lathe height is, for an individual, is elbow height. So if you stand to the lathe, put your elbow to center, that's about the right size for you. So it's a very, it's not a very scientific way of measuring, but that's about right. Saying that, this one is my elbow height. However, I prefer them a little bit higher than that. I prefer them just a couple of inches higher than elbow height. I think because it stops me from bending my back at all and stops my neck from lurching forward, sort of thing. But the height on this one, we are talking 114 centimeters. So 1,140 millimeters. Okay, so that's precisely. Yes, Ben.
And Robert would like to know, do you have any plans for the multi-tier carousels?
Not that I can publish, because they are. Yes, I do, because I've made it a two-parter for Woodturning magazine last year. So if you go to the back orders, you'll be able. They're in two parts. And the next question is going to be which issues were they, but I can't remember. I can get the information for you. Email me in, I'll get that info, or I'll tell you tomorrow, actually. But they're in Woodturning magazine this time last year. But no, I don't have any that I can just give you at the moment. So there we are. We're going to take the chuck away. So now we're going to go with our centers. Now we want to go with a single pointed center. So everything so far has been ring centers. Now we want single points, because we're going to be turning around a pre-drilled blank. And to do that, we need to put our centers inside the hole that we pre-drilled. So we'll pop our sanding table out of the way. So the minute, and the sections that I've got here, and if we look at my plan, the plan, or the dimensions for these, are 120 millimeters long. It's the same as the arms. So you can cut all your blanks the same and just drill the ones for the legs. Okay. Again, we're working with lime. And that goes into what I've got loaded on here is a light pull drive, and it's just a single pointed regular standard tailstock center. And you know what tool we're going to use, the only tool really that we should be using on this, it's a skew. So let's go with the 20 mil. And we're going to do the push pull cut. So we're going to push and we're going to pull. Push, pull. And this is just a roughing cut. Using the bottom third or bottom half even of the skew's fine. And again, if we go back to one of the legs that I've already turned, you can create a knee joint. And when you think about painting and decorating these, create a little areas that you can cut into. It's much easier when you're painting, or even a flat area which you can then mask and then paint up to. If you want to have separate boots and trousers, or you might want to have it just a single color, that's entirely up to you. But I like to have little beads in the middle, little V-cuts, those sorts of things. That really, really helps. And then, of course, taper down to the shin. You can't have the legs the same size all the way. All right. Yes, Ben.
Donna would like to know, what would lime compare to in the USA?
Basswood, I think, is the closest relation. I'm not sure whether they're the same species or not. Do you have any idea, Ben?
I've always, with carving, it's always been lime and basswood, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I think they are the same.
It's certainly, the working properties are the same. So we're just going to do a little bead in the middle. There we are, and on a V-cut. And let's tidy up each end. You don't have to, but it does make the join neat. And I think this side especially needs to come down in diameter a little bit. It's a 15 mil hole that this is going to butt into. So we got to go down to that 15 mil. There we are. Then you're going to sand that up and seal if you're going to paint, or leave it if you're going to stain. We're going to quickly do another one of those. Think about where they're positioned. They're positioned right next to each other. So you want to make sure you get them the same, or at least the features in the same place. So I'll start by roughing down. There we are. Let's get them next to each other. Got to make sure that your legs are the same length, otherwise your soldier, drummer boy, king, queen, they'll all be leaning. So let's just, before I trim this one up, let's just check. Yeah, the length is fine there. So I just need to take this end down and we'll be done with that one. And then again, you're going to sand it up. It's fine. Got our two legs, so let's take them off and put them next to each other. Make sure they line up nicely. There we are. That's not bad. We'll live with that. So let's start building this character. So we've got our round base. Now, what's the best camera? Let's get a couple of dowels. I've cut a few already. Slightly longer dowels for these. It's got to go through the foot into the base and into the legs. I would have by tomorrow added the feet. Okay, go down. May not go all the way. No, that's about as far as it's going to go. That's fine. With the feet on there as well, that will take that extra space up. So let's just get all right, so you can see what we've got so far. So now we've got to start thinking about the body. The body's quite an interesting shape, actually. We've got to think about a belt loop. Most soldiers, certainly kings and queens, we don't want to make them fat. We're going to have them nicely pinched in at the body. Okay, so this is hard-working soldier, this one, or drummer boy. So, and that gives us a chance to decorate. We can put black paint in there. We can put belt buckles on, all those sorts of things. You can even put a bit of leather in there if you want to. So this is the shape that we're going to create next. Now this is quite important, especially if you're going to turn this into a nutcracker mechanism. We will show you why tomorrow, but follow the diagram and the sizing, because if you are, then for drilling and for routing out, it goes into a little cradle, which is a specific size. So really, really quite important. Let's pretend that we're not. And however, I'm still going to turn to the size I've got on the drawing, which is 68 millimeters. Very precise for that reason. And let's go ring center again. So we're going to go, where is he? That one there. The tailstock ring center. There we are. Again, a bit of lime, but it doesn't really matter. This is a particularly lovely bit of lime because it's full of ripple. I don't know whether the camera can see that. Maybe if I just put the light on, it might bounce a little bit of ripple off for you. But that's a particularly nice piece. Now that, if you're going to stain, will really enhance that rippling as well. It'll look beautiful. So what we'll do, down to cylinder. So that's a much bigger bit of timber. So what I'm going to do is turn the lathe speed down, turn the lathe on, and then the lathe up. And we can go straight in with a roughing gouge, get the job done nice and quickly. And you'll feel that everything changes. When you get to that round, the sensation back to you is a different feeling. You know when it becomes round, you get that solid cut as opposed to a juddery cut. Look at them ripples. That's amazing. Good. 68 mil is where I want to be, so I'm going to measure that. And we'll cut in with a parting tool. So again, let's go with our calipers. And this is a wood turning 68 mil. It's not an engineering 68 mil, so this is as accurate as you need to be. What I'll also do in my cradles is add a little bit of router matting to pad out any error that there might be. Not that there will be any, of course. There we are, 68 millimeters. So beading and parting tool, let's go with a big 3/8. There we are. So there's our 68 mil. We've just got to turn down to that now. So just skimming now, just to get down nice uniform disc. There we are, that's about it. So let's raise the tool rest and get in there with the skew, just to give us a lovely clean finish. Let's go with a bigger skew, just give me a bigger bearing surface. There we are. Let's stop and have a look at that wonderful grain on there. Look, you can see how it ripples. The stun of that piece. A little bit bigger on this side. There we are. Right then, so the top of this one. Let's make the top tailstock side. So we're going to chamfer 45 degrees. The chamfer is there because we've got to meet the head in a minute. So you can see where the head is. We've got to have some curvature on the head. And if we didn't have a chamfer there, we wouldn't be able to curve this around. It would be straight. So a little chamfer. Yes, Ben?
Hodgepodge would like to know, if you're making a batch of these, would you turn multiple sets of legs and bodies and arms, or do one crack at a time?
No. Do like you just said, do all the arms, all the legs, all the bodies, all the heads. So much easier. It's easier because you get your eye in with each one as well. So you think about going to the pillar drill and drilling all the legs. You can do them all together. You don't have to keep changing stuff around on all the various machines. The same with changing centers and different jaws and that sort of thing. Far more time consuming having to do one, individually. Either that might be a little bit mind numbing at times when you're doing, I don't know, a dozen legs or a dozen arms, that sort of stuff. But you do really, it does benefit your turning because you're practicing the same thing over and over again. The story was in Siefen and Oberhausen, all those villages in that part of Germany, that the family, a family would 1 week be making arms for nutcrackers, the next week making bodies for smokers, the next week making Christmas trees to decorate all of these things. So a family's job, and it was a family business, very often the dad, the father would be doing the turning, and the mother and the children would be doing the decorating and the embellishment. So it's a very, very much a family thing. And I quite like that. But they wouldn't have the whole thing to make. They would have body parts or sections to make in a particular week. Ben?
And Frederick would like to know, do you ever use grain filler on loose grained wood?
No, I don't. No, I don't. Because I think you use the timber to suit its application. So if you want something for painting, then go with the timber that doesn't need filling. If you want to embellish grain, so you want to pick out the grain, use something with a coarse grain, something like ash, oak, those sorts of things. So no, I don't. I think probably more at home for the for the carpenter, joiner, cabinet maker, or was probably not cabinet maker, but do you know what I mean? Where you need to create that smooth finish ready for lacquering and all that sort of stuff. We can get over it with turning many times. That's the only reason. I'm doing a belt loop here. So, and make your character, your king, your soldier as thin as you want them to be. Queens are slightly different. Their body shape is far different. They're always very pinched in. They don't have gnashing teeth. They have nice vivacious lips, nice blood red lips. So you do make them slightly different. You can also put shorter legs on queens as well. Rather than making long legs, you could put a skirt on, for instance, instead of 2 long legs, and just have the little short legs at the bottom of the skirt. So you can play around with the design a little bit more on queens. But there we are, belt loop. So if we just round in with a skew or beading and parting tool, one of it, whichever you're more at home with. But remember, I will always say, if you don't practice with a skew, you won't get good with it. So keep going with your skew if you're struggling. Don't leave it to one side and never use it again. So I'm using the heel, and this is a much better way of rounding over a bead if you're unsure with a skew. Starting out with a skew, use the heel. If you're well practiced, then you don't have to. You can go to that main cutting edge and practice, and then practice a bit more. So right the way over, down to the little loop. There we are. Nice little loop. Now, one thing I haven't done yet is clean up the ends. So we're going to do that now. Here we are. Now, I'm just very quickly going to turn it around to do the same thing to the other side, only because this is quite a big center I've got in here, and I won't be able to get that close to center point. So I'm just going to swap him over because you can. Same thing. Good. Now I'm going to check the length of this one. I need this to be, in terms of length, let me check my drawings here. I need this to be 100 millimeters. 100 mil because it's got to fit into that cradle. Could do with a little bit more coming off the bottom there. There we are, happy with that. That's our 100 mil. All right, and again, now you would sand that up. Seal, if you're going to paint. But to start with, what we need to do now is just trim this off, and we're going to go to a sander again, trim this area away, and then think about where to drill. So we're going to pick that up tomorrow. Drilling is going to be all part of tomorrow's embellishment. Put that one just there for a minute. So sanding disc back on. So that means the C-jaws. Now I've been doing Christmas heirloom decorations for you now. Well, since September, I think we started our first decoration. You've seen how much I've used these guys. This and the sanding platform, I've used it an awful lot. We've spoken about it an awful lot because it just transforms your lathe into another really, really important tool. I use this in most of my projects, most of the demonstrations. It's just so nice to use. If you ask for anything on your Christmas list this year from Santa, I would ask for one of those. It will really benefit you and the projects that you make. About 1,000 revs, and I'm just going to sand this nice and flat. So the bottom is an exposed surface. You will see that. That will be part of your nutcracker. The top will be hidden, but it does need to be flat though. And we are going to drill that. There we are. So far, let me just get this to one side. Put him down there for you a minute. We'll get the other one that we started. We've still a fair way to go. I'm going to put this back together for you just to show you where we've got to go. We've still a fair way to go. However, what I want to do tomorrow is show you the drilling techniques or the drilling devices that I'm using. Pop that back in there a minute. Line everything up. There we are. So we've still got a fair way to go. That's where we are. So we got arms to make. And what I want to show you with the arms is how we can put the bend in it. We've done it before on a few projects. The head, which is a really, really simple one. And the hat, again, it's a really, really simple one. There's a little bit more sanding to do on the flat here. But that's a start. And that's the main start. That's the main structure built already. Drilling is going to be done using our little cradles. I've already spoken to you about that one, but we don't have to. You can simplify this project quite easily. I tend to make jigs and cradles and all those sorts of things because I'm doing lots of them. If you're just making one, there are absolutely no point in going to the time and the trouble to make a big routing box, to make a cradle to drill and all those sorts of things. Just use a V block and position where you want the various limbs to go. Okay, I think that's going to be it for the minute. If nothing else tonight, download your plans, so the line drawings. Have a look at Emma Cook's website, the Tiny Turner. Have a look at the fur. It's really, really well priced. And join me again tomorrow. Don't forget, we're back tomorrow, not next week. We're back tomorrow at 3 o'clock to conclude this one, to look at paints and dyes and all the various jigs and bits. So stick with us, guys. And until tomorrow, thanks for dropping by. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.